Good morning, good afternoon, and good very late evening to our friends out there in Australia who have joined us today. Thank you for joining Qumulo's session today. We're super excited to be here talking about the diversity of storage options that are out there as users are increasingly accelerating their data-driven projects, their data-driven workloads. So like Steve mentioned, we were on Cloud Field Day a few weeks ago. We're going to really focus on the on-prem data center portion of our technologies today. But really, when you think about Qumulo, what we're really looking at is how can we give you access to your data where you need it, when you need it, no matter which location it's in. And that's by blending a modern solution of a software-defined file system that can span across NVMe, cloud, spinning disk, of course, as well. And that's really what we're going to focus on is how do we give you that choice? How do we make the decisions on what types of technologies we support, how we get the data to those technologies, and really delve deeply into the experience with Qumulo. Before we get started, I'm Molly Presley. I'm responsible for product marketing here at Qumulo. Joining me today is Jason Sturgeon, who is our senior product manager responsible for platforms, as well as a variety of other portions of our technology and software. Our Field CTO Keith Nargi is on. He'll be doing a live demo to tie up today's session. Keith is out east dealing with another of the kind of global issues we have right now, and he no longer has power or internet, but has been able to pull together a generator and cell phone hotspots to make that work. If perhaps he has a problem, Tim Kressler, another of our field leaders, is on his backup as well. So thank you all for joining us, and let's get started. So over the past week, our delegates were kind enough to respond to a survey that Qumulo sent out talking about just framing what is going on in the world today for system administrators, what's going on because this is the storage field day and the role of storage and how are people thinking about it. I wanted to share some of the results of that survey. As we do a lot of market research, we talk to customers a lot, but getting other expert opinions into this presentation of what are the real pain points that folks are dealing with. This is coming from our delegate audience, and there's kind of two ways I grouped the pain points. One is around product. It's about features that people need, the ability to scale as data grows, the ability to access the cloud, the data management of this entire environment, having deep technical expertise. I really found it interesting that one of the comments was very specifically that, the idea of specialization is so uncommon now. People are becoming generalists, and that is definitely a challenge to having the kind of staff that you need. But I also thought as you looked at the role, storage administrators, I think that role is sometimes becoming less common. As technologists, we're being asked to fuel data or business initiatives, use data and the technology where it's stored to drive new business projects, to provide information to data scientists. And so I think that the key takeaway I had on the pain points is there's definitely an access to data and having the data where you want it. And then on the role side, it needs to be strategic. How do you spend your day doing strategic activities, not kind of the system maintenance, hands-on touching of the hardware activities. So those were kind of the key takeaways I took from that particular portion of our survey. And then as we think about hybrid cloud and workloads that actually are running where you might need on-prem sometimes, you might need the cloud other times, I always find this market to be evolving so quickly that having a good feel for which types of workloads, which types of environments are really moving data out of an on-prem cluster up into the cloud to do something. What are they doing in the different locations? And of course, we already talked about the challenges of doing that. And not surprisingly, a lot of the workloads that have to do with leveraging cloud-based applications fit in here. Maybe you're capturing your data in the data center from your users. You may have multiple data centers all capturing data. But you want to process that in the cloud using the huge amount of compute capabilities the cloud has, using all the applications and services the cloud has. So really that idea of having a single software application in which you can store your user directories, store your business unit data, move it to your applications wherever they reside, and leverage both your legacy apps, which may have been written for file, for NFS, SMB types of interfaces, as well as using the more modern applications that are being built in the cloud to use data stored in a cloud object store like S3 are the kinds of things that a hybrid cloud environment really needs to be able to make those workloads successful. And one of those bottom comments is, this is a long list I want to call out, is a huge obstacle to leveraging the cloud for any of your data-driven activities is refactoring applications. Data is stored in a format, whatever it is, a file, an object. With Qumulo, we start with making everything as files. But when you want to access that data somewhere else, if you have to refactor the application, often that's too expensive, too time consuming. You may not even have the developers to do such a thing. That can be a huge limiter too. So that persona of the data, being able to flip it between file and object and back again so that you don't have to refactor apps and you can use it in the location where those apps run, are really big blockers that need to be overcome in our industry, and large part are things that Qumulo is focused on that make hybrid cloud a reality. And then lastly, from our survey, what do people use cloud for the most today? The most popular answer from the survey was for applications. So even though this is a storage field day to day, what we often find is data is created on-prem in very, very fast systems, which we're going to talk about with our NVMe solutions today. But then it may be moved to the cloud to get access to some of the applications in the cloud. And it may not even live there forever. It may just move to the cloud to be processed and then continue to live in those high performance storage systems on-prem. So that was a survey from our audience. I know that our expert audience will also be jumping in and asking questions as we go. But let me tell you a little bit about Qumulo. We were founded back in 2012. This was in the time where unstructured data was just starting to hit the news, hit the analyst polls as one of those just rapidly, exponentially growing data environments. Strategic data was moving out of databases and into structured data, or unstructured data was starting to be used for business decisions much more than it ever was before. And as you think about where that data is being created, it's being created from sensors, it's being created from autonomous vehicles, it's being created from cameras, and also from distributed data centers around the globe. And so as the growth of unstructured data went on over the last 10 years, it's become highly distributed. And while companies know that they want to use it for innovation, getting access to that data, knowing which data they have, and then getting it to the applications has become a huge challenge. And that's the challenge that Qumulo was founded to solve. So let's take a kind of step back and think about what are the problems, if you think about these massive unstructured data environments that organizations, administrators are dealing with, losing track of their data. I mean, just everyone we talk to struggles with this, that users and sensors and machines are creating data, and knowing what data they have, where it's sitting, is nearly impossible today. As you look at the legacy solutions, there's also been a big problem with scalability, that systems are not able to scale to the volume of data or to the capacity of data that's needed. And so what they've implemented over the time has been tiering systems to help solve that problem, kind of a patchwork way to get data off of your performance storage to something else so you can accomplish scalability. There was a world where GUIs and user interfaces were the way that we interacted with our systems, with our data. It required as an administrator to manually set up new users, access this into the system. But again, as you think about the scale, we're dealing with billions of files, petabytes of data, instead of tens of files or tens of directories and maybe terabytes of data. That really has become a huge challenge as well. Having visibility into that data, the idea of not having any kind of built-in analytics can be a huge challenge. And then lastly, not having a really cohesive journey to the cloud are the issues that we've seen with legacy systems that Qumulo is designed to solve. So let's talk a little bit about the Qumulo solution. First, thinking about that data sprawl, that if you have different systems, different applications creating data, and they're not unified under a single software solution, it makes it very difficult to first just consolidate your data. Qumulo's built a cloud-native software-defined file system. And I know that sounds very marketing lingo-ish, and it kind of is. But what that means to us is our software solution is a very scalable distributed file system that can run on x86 systems, or it can run natively on the cloud infrastructure. What that means is as you go and deploy your environment. If you need a small cluster locally in a remote office, if you need a big cluster behind a clustered compute environment, and you need to access Qumulo in the cloud, you can simply run our software solution in all of those different locations. What that gives you is a single user experience across all the different environments. It gives you all the benefits of our software, which I'll be going through over the next 5 or 10 minutes. And as you do automation to tie your applications to our APIs, that goes with your data as it goes into the cloud or to another data center as well. So getting all your data into a single software application is one of the first things you need, and that application has to be designed to run in the different locations where you keep your data. But then the other piece is about consolidating the workloads that you need to do with your data. So being able to work with NFS and SMB based applications, so creative applications as well as business applications, and being able to use those cloud native services. We've designed our solution to integrate with all those different types of applications and to be able to share that data no matter where it comes in over from a Mac or from a Windows box or from a Linux system, being able to share that data.
The solution supports file protocols, I'll call it, as well as object storage protocols. Is that?
Yeah, so we built a system where we call ourselves file system purists. We built the system.
File system purists?
Yes, we think, there's been debates over the years of do you need file or do you need object to manage these massive unstructured data environments? File systems have a lot more intelligence built into them and order built into them as you start to really grow your environment. And the biggest limitation that had come across with file systems in the past is everyone loved them, but they didn't scale. We've designed our system to be able to scale where you don't have performance problems as you grow your file system, as you add the number of files. And we also have built-in things that, as you have big 18 terabyte drives and you're recovering them, you don't have data at risk, which is some of the reasons object storage came about. We've built those capabilities into our file system. But to get back to your question of what we do, we create all the data over a file type of interface. If a customer wants to connect to an application that writes to S3, we partner with Minio to be able to do that, which is an open source tool that presents an S3 interface along with our NFS and SMB. But the other thing that we do is once that data is being created and you want to present it to applications, we build in the data management capabilities to make a copy of your data up into an Amazon S3 bucket. It's stored there natively, so you can use the cloud native applications. So as you think about how we access object data is sometimes it's because you need to write data into an S3 interface, and we've solved that problem into our file system. And then if you actually need to have the data in native object format, we have a technology called Shift, which moves it into that object format for access to applications on an ongoing basis.
Okay, thanks.
You bet.
I have another question. So looking at your installed base, your users, because you depicted a scenario with several use cases and a consolidation that happens at some point. How many of you users are using the platform for just one use case, like, for example, big data analytics or AI or whatever? And how many of them are actually consolidating or starting to consolidating more workloads in the platform consistently?
That's a good question. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that, and then Jason actually has a use case slide in his section that goes into more detail, so I'm going to defer a bit of it to Jason. But to your question of how many are actually using multiple applications on a single Qumulo cluster, it's increasing every day. It's more than half of our customers do that. And the reason I say it's increasing every day is very often a customer will buy us for a dedicated application, maybe it's home directories, maybe it's for analytics, one of the use cases. And then once they get it in their environment and are happy with the Qumulo experience, are pleased with the technology, they'll start to move more workloads onto us once we're in that environment. So we came out of stealth back in 2015, and the original customers who deployed us just to maybe replace an old NAS system or something like that have added multiple workloads onto us over time, continue to expand their system. And that's very, very common. Like I said, more than half of our customers do that.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. And then the other piece before I jump on to talk about is the consolidation of data protection as well. So one of the historic problems that we've really struggled with as an industry is how do you back up a petabyte or billions of files and those endless tree walks and file system scans that need to happen to figure out where is the change data, which data is eligible for backup, has been hugely complicated. And we know we're in a world where data protection is increasingly important. The unstructured data is more valuable to businesses. There's more hackers. There's more compliance problems. And we've done a lot to build in the data protection capabilities into our system as well. So we have built-in snapshots, of course. Those snapshots can be replicated to an offsite location. If you're using a cloud cluster, you can actually make a copy of your snapshots into S3. And we have built-in replication. So you can take a Qumulo cluster who's sitting in your data center and replicate to a Qumulo instance in the cloud to have a cloud copy of your data. That copy can sit in file or it can sit in object. Policy-based so that you can figure out which data is eligible for protection, how you want to handle those data. So the other piece that's really important here is it's not just about consolidating the applications that are creating data, but also consolidating the applications that you're using to manage the data with Qumulo.
Molly,
Yes.
are you doing any efficiency on the blocks before you replicate? In other words, any compression, deduplication, encryption?
You know, I'm going to actually ask one of our technical team to answer that. Keith, do you want to jump in on that, or Tim?
Sure. So from an efficiency perspective, we don't send full file after the initial replication occurs. It's all based on the block changes. And one of the big powerful things that Qumulo has built is this integrated analytics engine into our system that all of our feature functionality uses. So when we create snapshot A and snapshot B and compare those for replication, we basically create an atomic list of changed blocks only, not full files, so that when the replication picks those blocks, it's just sending the changes on a per file or per block basis. In conjunction with that, all data replicated from site A to site B, and site A could be on-prem and site B can be in the cloud or another on-prem system, is replicated via encryption. So all the data on a Qumulo cluster is sitting there at rest encrypted, and then as it moves over the wire to its target cluster, it's also encrypted. So we do a lot of extreme efficiencies in making replication as fast as possible by not doing full file replication.
And does the customer manage the keys of the encryption keys, or is that something that is internally managed by Qumulo?
No, the encryption actually, when you create a relationship, you have to, the encryption keys are set up by Qumulo and it's authenticated or authorized at the time of the relationship. So if I set up on my primary cluster a replication relationship, I have to go and authorize it on the target side. So I can't actually start replicating until that the relationship and the key exchange occurs by an administrator of a Qumulo system going in and actually authorizing each individual replication. As far as key management for data at rest encryption, that is managed by the customers.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So when we think about scale efficiency, there's definitely the efficiency as data moves around between clusters with replication that we just talked about. But there's also the efficiency that's built into the system that in our survey, one of the key concerns that our delegates here for today were talking about was also the cost of storing your data as it grows. One of the challenges that we've really overcome with our system is we've designed our file system that you can use 100% of the capacity that you've allocated to the file system. So you erasure code it, you protect it, and then that entire usable capacity you can use. We have customers that run at 99.8% capacity regularly, and you don't see any performance drop as we get to a full file system. So if you think about cost, if you're buying a petabyte of storage and you compare it to some of the alternatives out there, and you can actually use the full petabyte, no matter if you have small or large files or a mix. And some of the alternatives out there, they recommend as you get to 60 or 80% capacity, you add more capacity. So all of a sudden now that 1 petabyte you think you're going to use, you're only getting 600 or 800 terabytes. And then on top of that, if you have small files that aren't aren't protected efficiently or stored efficiently, you can have even less available capacity. So there's the efficiency of how we move data, how we store data, and then actually using the full allocated system that you can, which drives down costs, makes sure you get what you pay for with the systems that you're using with Qumulo. And then there's the ability to scale to hundreds of billions of files. Some of the concerns that we've had with legacy systems as customers think about, do I need to move to an object store? Our file system has many customers who are in the tens of billions of customers or tens of billions of files running a single cluster. Very, very common. Again, no performance penalty as you're starting to do that. And then the other part of efficiency is, how do I get access to my storage? And Jason's going to talk about this a fair bit, so I'm just going to skate over this real quickly, but it's a really important concept that when you think about having access to all NVMe or the fastest technologies that are out there right now to give great user access, great application performance, having all of your data written to Flash is a fundamental piece of how we designed our system. Every bit of data that we've ever written has gone to Flash. But Flash, even though prices have come down, is still more expensive than spinning disk. Having access to spinning disk is a piece of what we do where we automate the move in and out of cache, where we make sure we're predictably moving data into the read cache to have access to it. But we don't actually introduce tiers into our system ever. Everything's automated. We don't ever do stubbing. We don't ever move data to a point where it has to be hydrated back up the storage tiers to get access to the applications for the data. And it's really important because as you've started to do tiering jobs in the legacy system, there's a policy that has to run to figure out which data is eligible to tier, just like there would be policies that would run or file system scans that would run to figure out which data is eligible to backup. And again, as file counts have increased, it takes such a long time for those processes to run that often tiering jobs don't complete. And so you're stuck where your performance storage is full and you have user problems, or you get stuck where your data is somewhere in a colder tier of storage and it needs to be populated and rehydrated back up to give it the access to the application. Sometimes that takes too long. Sometimes, again, your performance storage is too full. So it doesn't really work as well as what users need to deliver a great experience to the business and great experience to applications. Qumulo automates all of that with really intelligent caching. If you need to access your data on disk, you can do that. We never have to hydrate and move data back and forth.
So,
and as yeah, go ahead, Ray.
The caching that Qumulo uses is based on Flash or NVMe Flash, or is it memory cache, or
yeah,
all the above?
Short answer is all the above. We have memory. We have different types of cache based on the different platforms that we have at NVMe versus SSD, and Jason will be covering that in his section. So we'll come back to that and he'll go into this portion of this presentation much more deeply.
Okay, thanks.
You bet. And then automation. Users can't manually manage these systems anymore. Having API first designs where you can automate redundant tasks like setting up users, setting up security policies, also automate tying into AI and ML tools and automating the applications in the environment that are using Qumulo has become absolutely critical. Our GUI is great, and you're going to see a lot of the information you can get out of our GUI, but it's used less for administrative tasks and more for understanding your data. That's what Keith will be demonstrating today. And as we look at software managed data in the future, being able to automate everything you do in a DevOps environment, in an HPC environment, in an enterprise environment has become table stakes for these massive unstructured data environments, and something Qumulo was designed as an API first product as well. And then as you think about data visibility, knowing what data you had, who created it, who's moved it, how quickly is it growing, when are you going to run out of capacity on your metadata, on your snapshots, on your data, all these types of questions, if you think about a dispersed environment or one that doesn't give you built-in visibility into your data, can be very difficult. You sit down and read log files, you parse through data, try to get the reports together you need, and often can be caught by surprise. And troubleshooting is also very difficult. When you run into a problem with a user not getting the performance they need, how do you troubleshoot it down to that IP address? Is it the storage system? Is it the network? Is it a problematic application? What Keith will be demonstrating in this session is the real-time visibility we give into those data sets, that as you think about consolidating into a single solution, and a lot of the challenges IT administrators have, we've built that in with our real-time analytics. And then the journey to the cloud. If you want to go more deeply into this, like Steve mentioned at the beginning, we did a cloud field day a few weeks ago. Please check out that session because we spent a lot of time on this. But from a summary perspective, we really see that your data needs to be into a software package that provides the benefits we're talking about. And then it needs to be able to run and be stored wherever your business needs it to be. If you have the need to use cloud for the power of the compute, for the all flash instances that are available, for applications that are in the cloud that you don't have on-prem, Qumulo can move the data you've created in the past up into the cloud and give you access to those applications and to those different services in the cloud. Or you can just spin up your instance of Qumulo from the AWS Marketplace or GCP Marketplace and start your data business up in the cloud. So what we'll find is very often new workloads that are born in the cloud, they'll just start with Qumulo in the cloud, where legacy environments that are going through transformation, using hybrid environments, are choosing Qumulo instead of continuing to upgrade their legacy solutions because we can help them on their journey to the cloud. So as you think about moving forward and having the nimbleness of how your data is moving across different data centers and different clouds, Qumulo offers that multi-cloud distributed data center environment that you need to support remote workers, have access to applications, innovate where you want to.